All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back. We're going to move upwards here and see if we can get a little bit of better lighting. I want to start this message off by really briefly plugging my Instagram page and my BitChute channel. Links are in the description box below. If you want to catch me uncensored, if you want to watch all of my videos that I've had to delete, over 100 of them off of this platform, check out my Instagram, check out my BitChute page. I'm posting 1 to 5 new posts on both platforms every day. So please don't just go over to my BitChute channel and be a stranger. Make a free account on BitChute and subscribe to me and hit the notification bell. That way, every time I make a new informative video, you'll be informed. You'll be given a notification and you can check out my content. I'd really appreciate it. Again, links are in the description box below. But guys, aside from all that, I want to talk about distillation, water distillation. And not just water distillation as a physical thing, but as a metaphor of sorts. Distillation is a very powerful symbol, ladies and gentlemen, and that's why it's one of the most often used symbols in alchemy. Distillation. What are we doing when we distill a gallon of water, folks? Well, we are putting water in a boil kettle and boiling it for a prolonged period inside of an enclosed vessel, and the water is rising as a steam, and all of the heavy particulates that we don't want, which in alchemical terms, this is called dross. The garbage in the tap water that we don't want to put into our bodies, all of the accumulated poisons and chlorine, hexafluorosilicic acid, hydrofluorosilicic acid, pipe residue, scaling lime, etc., cobalts, algicides, disinfectant byproducts. This is known as dross. Dross is an alchemical term to basically, in layman's term, summarize impurities. So we are boiling water in a boil kettle that's enclosed. We're exposing the water to chaos, again, lengthy boiling, and steam starts to rise. The impurities or the dross cannot rise with the rising steam because they're too heavy. The water goes through a coil in the distiller and condenses and comes out into the collection jar of the distiller, 95% pure. Again, distillation is not a surefire method. It does not get rid of everything. It does not get rid of all the volatile organic compounds, etc. But compared to water filtration, distillation is like a Ferrari compared to a Ford Pinto. The Ford Pinto being the water filter. Am I a fan of water filtration? Absolutely. But folks, filters are dark, wet, and cold. They're a perfect breeding ground for bacteria, molds, etc. Catch my drift? With a water distiller, you can clean it every time you distill a gallon of water. If you wanted to, with citric acid crystals, with things such as Lumen, a brand that makes distiller, it's a brand of distiller cleaner. You can really get things clean, remarkably clean with distillation. So, what are we doing with a distiller? We're separating dross from the pure parts. We're isolating the garbage, leaving it behind, and purifying or exalting the once, dross-filled liquid. I hope that makes sense. So if you look at old alchemical texts, there's distillers in multiple very well-known pieces of alchemical art. Distillers, ladies and gentlemen. Now, distillation is not just something that relates to water. Alchemy is all about the distillation of the spirit. It's about separating the unnecessary parts of the consciousness and the body, in the psyche. It's about separating the unnecessary parts and purifying the self. We are exalting the self through alchemy, ladies and gentlemen. Alchemy is a form of health. It's an ancient system of health. Let's just put it that way. What is the end goal of alchemy? Well, it's to find the philosopher's stone, right? To transmute base metals to gold, etc. There's multiple goals of alchemy. Turning lead or base metals into gold it's a metaphor, ladies and gentlemen, for purifying the self. Taking the heavy, unnecessary parts, metaphorically speaking, and making the self light again, making yourself pure again. Again, lead is not as pure as gold, right? It's about separating dross, removing the unnecessary parts, and exalting the self. Now, alchemy also is an ancient blueprint for raising kundalini. What do you think the philosopher's stone is, folks? The philosopher's stone is the awakened kundalini. What do you think the Magnum Opus is, the great work? Well, it's getting the kundalini to rise. Why do you think in so many alchemical texts, in the pictures, and the symbols that they use. There's like a distiller, a long distiller, because distillers were back then made of copper or glass. They look much different than modern distillers. You see these giant distillers with fire underneath the distillers and a group of alchemists sitting around the fire, poking and prodding at the fire to keep the fire at the right temperature for the distiller, right? But around that distiller, you see two dragons, one male and one female. You see symbols like this all the time in alchemy. This is symbolic of the cerebral spinal system. The distiller represents the spine in many of the old alchemical pictures and texts. Why do you think the fire at the bottom of the distiller, the copper vessel, had to be kept at the right temperature? Well, it's symbolic of getting the flames or the heat of kundalini to actually ignite the distillation of spirit. I hope that makes sense. Again, this lighting makes me look like a vampire. So again, one thing that I've always suggested to people is that if you can afford it, get an old school distiller. Get a mega home water distiller for the convenience, but try to get yourself an actual old style glass or copper distiller. Start engaging in the alchemy, ladies and gentlemen. Start making spagyrics. Start learning how to do these things, folks. It's remarkably rewarding. People say all the time, how do I raise kundalini? Well, first and foremost, a long-standing lust or desire to experience kundalini has to be obtained and maintained. On top of that, we compound that in tandem with alchemy. Do you know how many times I fucking sat and stared at alchemy texts, the pictures and whatnot, prior to my kundalini awakening? When I was in junior year of high school, I became obsessed with enlightenment, the idea of it. And it became an all-consuming fire. And years later, after much research, longing, wondering, just all these things in tandem, I experienced it. Alchemy was part of that. Alchemy is the distillation of spirit. It's separating the spirit that is caught in matter or caught in a state of slumber and isolating it and distilling it into the head. Again, I hope that makes sense. Some of these things probably don't. But guys, alchemy, the study of alchemy, what I would suggest doing is, I can't remember the name of the book, but there's this book that just shows a ton of different alchemical pictures. I can't remember the name of the exact text. I would suggest buying a book like that and just calm yourself down with the full body relaxation exercise, and then just look at those pictures. Try not to get too intellectual with the alchemy. Again, it's kind of like Paulo Coelho's book, The Alchemist. Remember the alchemist in that book? How much different he was from the boy in the main, I can't remember the name of the boy in that, it's been so long, but the alchemist in that book, he got obsessed with intellectualism. He got totally possessed by data and keeping notes. It kept him away from the simplicity of everything. Whereas the boy, not the alchemist, it just kind of clicked for him. Sometimes we get way too intellectually entwined in things to the point where it blocks us out from being able to catch on to the natural, intuitive, lessons that we're supposed to learn from our own intuition. Hope that makes sense. Distillation is probably the greatest way, water distillation, to begin engaging in actual practical alchemy on the physical level. Water distillation. Start distilling water. Start vortexing water. Start rebuilding the distilled water that you've distilled, and watch how it purifies your mind. Just watch. Watch what happens. I've been saying this for years, that water distillation is the most practical way to begin actually engaging with your physical hands and your body in alchemy. Because alchemy is not just related to the physical, you guys. Again, there is a physical aspect for sure, but it goes beyond the physical into the realm of the mind. The mind's attached to the physical body, but it can exist outside of it. So, man, it's like alchemy, you guys, is the ancient art of encoding messages about raising kundalini. I hope that makes sense. Like when you look at alchemy symbols, you see a man or a body, a physical body, with the head of a woman and the head of a man. That's symbolic of becoming the androgyne, the androgynous individual. This has nothing to do with having male and female genitalia and being like a hybrid between both. It represents the right and left lobe of the brain becoming balanced through kundalini. When the schism is united between the divisions of yourself. And people are like, what are you saying? There's a male and a female aspect of ourselves? No, I'm actually not saying that. I'm saying that the alchemists knew that the male energy is remarkably assertive and the female energy is remarkably receptive. It's a dynamic polarity between opposites. Catch my drift? Hope that makes sense. A lot of people are caught up on the idea that, we have every man is also a female and back for. I'm not going to get into that in this video. I am, however, saying that the female is the most potent symbol in the universe for being receptive. The male is one of the most potent symbols for being assertive. It's a yin and a yang, folks. We have assertive qualities and receptive qualities within all of us. Again, I hope that makes sense. But why do you think you see these figures in alchemy? A body with a head of two heads, man and woman, solar and lunar, receptive and assertive. We have these qualities within us, and when we unite them through kundalini rising, also known as Christ consciousness, we understand the secrets of the universe because it awakens the spark of God within us. The ladder of lights, the cerebral spinal system. When kundalini gets into the head, we understand everything. We are merged with the monad, the true living and hidden God, through Christ, which is the risen kundalini. This is when Lucifer redeems itself at the base of the skull and gets crucified and goes into the promised land, the brain, and it christens the brain. Man, it's like you see dragons in alchemy, you see snakes. I mean, come on, guys, it's pretty obvious what they're fucking hinting at this point. It's pretty fucking obvious. So, the actual art of health, how would I put this, you guys? There's people in this material realm that approach health for longevity. There's people who approach health in this world simply to feel good. There's people who approach health in this world to be as sharp as they can mentally and physically, athletes, things like that. But then there's, I don't want to sound elitist, but there is an elite class of those of us, most likely yourself. That's why, if you've made it this far in this video, I consider myself one of them. We practice health as if it's an art to get us closer to spirit. We practice the art of health every time we consume something for our health. It's with an intention to get us closer to our true self, our higher self. We are actually trying to use health in taking care of our bodies to awaken the slumbering serpent, to awaken our true potential, to unlock the secrets of the genes, the human genes. Catch my drift? To nourish the chromosomes, to nourish the DNA, to tighten the telomeres. We practice health, some of those amongst us, myself included, to raise kundalini, to try to become something more than what we currently are now. It's not just about, I want to look good in a bathing suit. I want to maybe live past 90. No, we are trying to unlock the secrets of Christ consciousness. We are actually approaching health like alchemists. Alchemists, ladies and gentlemen, take things and they purify them through a process of refinement. This is part of the Magnum Opus, or the great work. This is part of actually finding and developing the Philosopher's Stone. So people can bitch back and forth all day until the sun goes down and the moon comes up about how the Philosopher's Stone is actually some secret gem off at the, underneath Atlantis or this, that, and the other. No, folks, they want you looking outside of yourself. The Philosopher's Stone is within you. It's that simple. People can bitch about it. It's the pineal gland. No, not in my opinion, because the pineal, you can't identify one gland and say that it's the most important piece to enlightenment or this, that, and the other. The whole body, the organ system, everything works in tandem with one another to produce the symphony of consciousness or life that you currently experience. The Philosopher's Stone, folks, is the awakened kundalini. It's that simple. And we could go a lot deeper about what the stone actually symbolizes, but we're not going to in this video. I'm going to keep this one short. Alchemy. Those of us amongst us that are trying to awaken kundalini, we use alchemy. Our health is a form of alchemy. The things that we do, down to the very supplements that we consume, the thoughts that we generate, etc. We are constantly working on refining ourselves, and that's exactly what the ancient alchemists did. They were a hell of a lot smarter than us, however. Let me tell you, the alchemists of old were genius in comparison to you and I. Their verbal lexicon was massive, their vocabulary, their connection, I mean, Jesus Christ, it's not even comparable. 400, 500 years ago, the intellect level of the common folk was much higher. Like in the 1500s, people had massive verbal repertoires, massive vocabularies. It's funny, some of the smartest people in the world have the biggest vocabularies, and it's because when you have more words to define your life experience, you can actually engage, you can absorb more, if that makes sense. So you want to get smarter. Start taking care of your health and start learning new words, and then take those new words and actually start applying them to your reality. Watch what happens. But people can say words are a curse, the language is what got us in this mess, and there are people who say that, but we're not gonna go off into left field about that. And some of you guys who might have heard some of you who just heard what I said might think I sound crazy if you've never heard or gone down that rabbit hole about how words and language put us in a box. But we don't have time to stop speaking. We don't have I'm not even gonna go any further about it, excuse me. So health is a form, or there's a million different intentions, if you will, with taking care of yourself, but some of us do it to try to merge or create or integrate with our higher self. The body has to be nourished, ladies and gentlemen. Our mineral reserves have to be reacquired in order for the electrical current of kundalini to move up the spine. I experienced kundalini a handful of times in my early 20s throughout my mid-20s. I know, or I have a very solid blueprint on how to awaken this energy. I haven't gone near it, however, in the past 5-7 years, give or take, because I don't feel like I need to go back yet. I want to take the lessons that the Kundalini gave me throughout my mid-20s, early to mid-20s, and that, I don't need to go, I don't think most people understand how intense a real Kundalini awakening is, and how just seconds within that state of consciousness will forever change your existence and your outlook on life, etc. It's no joke. So people are like, oh, how do we raise it and keep it, or how do we keep it risen, blah, blah, blah. I have a very strong blueprint on how to awaken Kundalini, but it's something that I'm not going to, I've talked to people in live streams about this before. I don't think most people are ready to hear the protocol. It involves a serpent. It involves a handful of things that are considered, I don't want to say taboo, but it's not safe. Let's just put it that way. It's not safe. It involves certain compounds, etc. And again, I'm just not going to share that at this point in time. Right now, I'm just focusing on nourishing my body and practicing my alchemy. I know how to force Kundalini awaken, but I'm trying to learn how to keep it maintained. I don't think we're ready for it, folks. I think that God is putting us through a test here in this world, and we are being kept from this Kundalini energy so that we can show our true colors, so that we can learn from the struggle of not being connected to Christ through Kundalini rising. It's a struggle, you guys. Most people have no clue how disconnected we are. We're supposed to be intimately connected to God through Christ, risen Kundalini. This is all a test, in my opinion. This is all a test. And our genes have been so perverted that I'm not even 100% sure if we're going to be able in this lifetime to get Kundalini risen and keep it maintained. It's one thing to have an experience with it and to ignite it through yoga, through sensory deprivation, through psychedelic compounds. There's a handful of different ways. It's one thing to experience this energy. It's an entirely different thing to try to keep it ignited within you. I don't think our fractured minds could even handle it. To be able to walk around the material realm amongst all these zombies with a Merkaba spinning around us. The amount of things that excuse me, you guys, going a mile a minute. It's all the medicinal mushrooms that I took earlier. But distillation. You know how many people I've talked to over the years? One of my first videos on the Sacred Serpent channel, and I had a channel before the Sacred Serpent channel that I had to take down, but I talked about distillation on that channel. But one of the first videos that I ever produced on the Sacred Serpent YouTube channel was a video about distillation. And I started off my channel and I made a ton of videos on distillation. I don't really make as many as I probably should, but those videos, I've gotten so many emails from people who have watched those videos and reached out and said, dude, I started drinking the distilled water. I got horrible migraines for the first 3 days and then they went away. My mind now works so much better. So many people have reached out and told me that. Like, I bet you're putting fluid in your system now that your cells can actually use properly. You know, you're putting fluids in your body that aren't filled full of fluorine and fluoride and hexafluorosilicic acid and pipe residues and scaling lime and algicides and cobalts and disinfectant byproducts and all the other bullshit. Of course you're going to start feeling better. Your mind's going to work better. You're going to feel better in every way, shape, and form. And you're also going to drop the mind control, you guys, because these accumulative poisons that are in the tap water get stuck in our cells, they accumulate in our body, and they ruin our lives. They ruin our lives. So once you take the distilled water internally, like a sacrament, over time, everything starts to work better. Your mind clears up. You just feel different. You really do. You just fucking feel different. So again, you guys, that concludes my random alchemy rant. I'm going to wrap this one up. I love you all. May peace be with you.